Hey, this is Bill, and welcome to another episode of Combustible. This episode is actually the second part of an interview we did with Todd Edwards that we'd been planning for quite a while. Georgia weather being pretty damned unpredictable, the morning we were set to record, Todd couldn't get to us from where he lives other than by phone. If by chance you haven't listened to the first part of this interview, go back and listen to that one now, because this one pretty much picks up where we left off last time. So, here's part 2 of our interview with Todd Edwards.
You grew up in the fire service. This was your life. You made a lifestyle out of it. The people who are disconnected, can we teach that? Can we train that? Can we foster that? What, from your experiences, what about those? Because the ones that are on fire for the fire service, that's what they're going to be. And they get the speed bump in the road, and it doesn't take it too long before they overcome that because this is their life. This is their everyday life. So what about those that are sitting out there that you got to come, the ones that go to your training because they were forced to go, not at will to go, man, I want to expand my knowledge. What about those people? Is there something that we could be doing to impact them to?
Yeah, I think I think one mistake we make is we have that guy who is, 6-7 years, whatever he's been on the job for, and he is, I hate this, I don't like this, that's why I love asking why. Because when you start asking that again, they don't really know why they're mad or they're not engaged or they're not into it or whatever. I always thought I would love to have been the captain of a station where if you had a slug, send them to me. Send me your worst. Send me your slug. Send me this most disgruntled guy. If you're around positivity, you get positive. If you're around guys who are enthusiastic, you become enthusiastic. I firmly believe this, but we'll take that guy and we label him because, we don't really get a chance to know him. We don't take the time sometimes to get to know an individual. And you take that disgruntled guy, that guy just not into it, and start let me get to know you personally first. Then I can start figuring out what buttons to help push with you. And then just surround that person all the time with upbeat positivity about the job and what we really do. I think we just push those guys to the side. We put guys that need help into bad situations or with bad bosses. And other bosses, guys higher in the food chain, they need to learn how to recognize when they have poor leadership in their stations. And they need to address that. I had captains that were a little weak when I first came up into the BC rank, and by a constant religious message, everyday communication with those guys, those companies changed. They changed for the better just based on having somebody positive and supportive versus, oh God, we're going to get rode up. Oh God, I was 5 seconds late. Oh God, I'm going to get a letter. Oh, I'm going to get reprimanded. And I think that snowballs, we're talking about how we have stack effect on line of duty death. You have stack effect on bad firemen and bad leadership too. If you're immersed in nothing but guys sitting around, griping and moaning, you're going to become the next guy who's going to sit around and gripe and mope. And then you're going to be that guy who gets lucky and gets, promotes up. And you're going to be that boss now, griping and moping. That's how we create that vicious circle that some departments find themselves in, or battalions, or whatever the case may be. But man, let's put that guy with somebody who's going to take the time. I had a firefighter temporarily assigned. Took this firefighter almost a minute 30 to go mask, hood, helmet, gloves, air. A minute 30. So we had it standardized at our company. 28 seconds was the max time. And within 2 shifts, this person was at the 30-second, 28-second, 25-second mark, because that person was surrounded with somebody willing to work with them. Not just me, the guys. They took on that role to make sure this person was up to our standards. So we've got to raise that bar for everybody. And that's, that kind of leads off to about 10 other things, but maybe when we raise the bar, our guys will step up to it if we actually raise it. But if I leave the bar where, hell, anybody can step over. That's where we're always going to be at.
And you kind of answered this. I just want to make sure it's clear, because one of the things that I find, and I'll get lost in the conversation just listening, because I'm learning every time we do one of these podcasts. You know, it's easy to get engaged, but then it's hard to get engaged because you're just trying to soak all this information in, and I want to make sure nobody misses this, and it's been discussed a lot. So your low performer, you're putting him into a high performance house so they can have him or her step up. Is that what you would do? Or you're going to take your the discussion has been had, putting the low performers together in one place, or putting a low performer with the high performer so they can be impacted? Yeah, I knew you were going to.
Shane, Todd,
do we want to totally avoid this?
What you don't know, Todd, is that Shane absolutely hates this subject. He's making faces.
It doesn't seem like he hates it.
Well,
it's a debate, because, you know, if you, and I should frame it up, we'll go and we'll sit somewhere, we'll ask that question, let's say at a station, hey, what do we do with this person? Well, don't send them to us. Don't mess up our house, because what we have going on. So, okay, so you want the problem to go somewhere. You want all the problem people together. Well, all those problem people just happen to be at the first due for your house. Okay, now it just impacted you. So nobody wants to be impacted by the decision of what to do with those slow performers, the low performers. And you kind of hit it on the head where it's, wait, why don't we all work to get that standard up for them and put that work into those individuals? And it seems like a lot don't want to take the ownership of doing that. It seems unachievable.
Typically, they don't, because it takes work.
That's correct.
And it kind of gets back to where I think, you know, Todd was making a good point on that. You know, when you think about Todd's company he was talking about, and it was clearly a group of high performers, but what's the percentage in that department or on that shift or in that battalion that are just like him or just like them? I mean, are we talking about, you know, the theory is maybe you get 20% of your department that's going to be like that. Maybe you get a little more than that. I don't know that you do. I'm getting some numbers thrown out there that are less than 20, but I guess
Hatch is giving hand signals.
Yeah, but that doesn't
mean you shouldn't try. But I guess what I'm saying is you do get into a situation where you can't put all the low performers with Todd.
Correct. And let me say,
all the time,
because I think, Todd, you'd
be outnumbered. Your time, you wouldn't have enough time.
Not only that, I'll tell you what I found. And Todd, you said I don't know if I remember correctly, you were saying you weren't put in a position too often where you were having to do that, where you were having purposefully have a low performer sent to you to go, hey, let's send him to Todd. You know, like that's the
No, I wish. I wouldn't take him.
Well,
I would have no problem. I'd love taking a guy and spinning him around.
I think they avoided you.
Well, but, yeah, I had guys that wouldn't even work overtime on my shift.
So here's a perspective.
I had the same problem.
A perspective on that part. We had a pretty high-performing crew, and they would send us people. And what I found that was difficult is that it became more difficult for us to shatter that ceiling and go to the next rung when we were constantly having to reset and bring this person up. And as soon as that person's up, they're out, and then the next one's coming. So what ends up happening is, you know, that ceiling reaches a certain level where it's like, hey, we can't move past this right now, because every time it's almost like you are the training yard, which is fantastic, and there's a lot of good that goes along with that. But then it does put a ceiling on you sometimes where it's like, all right, we need to all get this person up to our par. So when you're constantly working and you become that place where the refuge for the department, go send them over there. And you know those people don't want to be there. I mean, that's another difficulty in it. They don't want to be there. But if you are able to, and you get them to start performing, like you said, hey, this is the standard at the station, this is what we do, this is our culture, for the most part, people are going to want to step up, and a great percentage of that will do. But it definitely keeps that ceiling to a point where, all right, when can we continue on as a crew to climb, when you continue to reset us by sending us this? So there's a luxury and an honor to go, man, that's fantastic that you're recognized for that. And then there's the other side of it to go, we need to grow past this, and you keep kind of bringing us to where we have to reset and bring this other person up. So that's just one of the things that I experienced that was a little bit difficult.
Is it a good for the many or good for the few? I mean,
that's where I was thinking. Like, I see what you're saying, but at some point, you're probably somebody else is trying to make decisions to put these low performers with you because they know that their performance is going to come up. It may not come up completely.
But it's going to frustrate the crew to constantly have to be staying in this stagnant. I'm only going to keep going over the basics over and over again with new people all the time. They don't ever get to move past and become the more advanced firefighter that they want to be.
How many of those people that you got in there that were the low performers, and you convert them and you make them into, to go back to what I said in an earlier episode, you've got your killers. You make them into a killer, and they are that top-notch. They're part of your crew now, and they get sent off, and you get sent another underperformer. Are we underestimating the influence that killer now has where they are? You've trained somebody who's now out in the department making more like that.
God, I hope not. That's exactly what I'm trying to do.
Well, I mean, but that's, in saying that my company only gets to go to this level because we constantly are getting sent the underperformer, I think you're underestimating the impact that you've had throughout the department. Yes, it is local at your station. You've hit a ceiling, as you put it, Pavel, but your impact in the department is huge because you are Johnny Appleseed. You are sprinkling.
Yeah, but when you're in Groundhog Day doing the same thing over and over again, you don't always know that.
So it's frustrating. I get it.
So we'll take to Todd. He goes out and he has influence, a great deal of influence, and you're going out around the country training all these people to do things. Then those people go back to their departments, and they'll hit that ceiling within their. I'm just going to use something as an example, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but when vertical ventilation, well, my department doesn't do it. I just went and took this great class to do this, and now I can't apply that within my department. Then you have the ones that are showing up to this training. Yes, what Todd is doing for the masses is fantastic. There's going to be a great percentage of these people that will not perform to that level. So you invest a lot of yourself, and let's say 2 out of 10 people are going to go out there and be those killers. I get that, but there is an exhaustion that comes along with you putting that out constantly. The people in the greater percentage and Todd, correct me if I'm wrong, the greater percentage of the people that are going to some of these conferences, listen to the podcast,
you're already talking about the top.
That's correct.
They're already the 1%.
Those are the killers already.
Right.
When it's a different dynamic, when you are at that station life and you're getting the
projects,
those constant projects could be quite
the kids
challenging. It is a Groundhog Day. I think you hit it on the head. It's kind of a Groundhog Day, and it's great in the beginning, but there is a time where it could be quite taxing, and you're going, all right, well, there's a growth that needs to happen within your team, and you need to go above that. So,
Todd, were you ever frustrated in that?
No. I'm not listening. I don't even know what the hell they're talking about.
I was going to say, this is what we do. We take over.
I thought he said he was getting underperformers and turning them around.
No, he said he always wished the chance, right?
Yeah, he didn't have that. So I would just say
no. When I got an underperformer, I didn't let it hold back my like you're referring to them as killers. We would still we were always looking to excel, and we would drag sometimes that guy with us. But it doubled a little bit of your workload where there's a little more one-on-one interaction, or I would take, that 3-year guy, say, get this guy right on the basics. Just get him right first. And then we would continue on pushing ourselves forward at all times. I never let, just because I had an underperformer, drag down 3 other members. Because remember, as the boss, my only responsibility every day was to those guys. That was always my approach, not just the underperformer, but the entire company. If it meant doing a little bit extra that day to move those guys forward while getting this guy kind of caught up, then that's what we did. And I never got flustered by it because what I tell guys at every class, no matter what it is, whether it's, I'm doing something in a local department or I'm sitting in classes listening to other guys, and most of the instructors will say this too, you're not going to take every single thing from a class. But God dang, if I pick up 1 thing, 2 things, 3 things, and I can apply them in some form, way, or aspect, I'm getting something out of my time, effort, and energy. I've had guys at classes that tell me they're only there because they have to be there. oh, it's on our matrix. I have to take this class, and blah, blah, blah. No, those are the guys I actually get excited about having there because I'm like, I'm going to flip this dude today. I'm going to flip this guy's mind today. So again, and I can do that from as a boss at a firehouse or as an instructor. Let me flip this guy's mental thought process about this subject matter. And if he gets one or two things, maybe he'll go out and look again. Are we going to flip everybody in this job? Never. You're never going to flip them all. But for everyone you guys are producing, that guy may go out and produce another one or two, then another one or two, then another, and you end up having that domino effect over the long term.
Yeah.
And yeah, it can be frustrating, but I mean, like I said, I think as leaders and instructors and firefighters, there's never enough challenge to me. You know, I just, there's not enough challenges out there sometimes. I want the challenges. I love having a class where I got a handful of folks I know don't want to be there. I love those guys. Because at the end of most of those classes, you can see that light bulb either flip on or, you know, and you're not flipping them all. But man, you flip two, maybe those two guys flip another two. And then you have that effect down the road. You know, how many guys do you think all of you have influenced? Have you ever thought about how many guys you are influencing just with your podcast?
Solid 2 or 3.
Yeah.
We know it's less
So
than
that's
10.
3 more guys than we had last year. How about that?
Yeah.
Well, that goes back to the whole thing. Do you want to leave a legacy? You know, and the people, how you have influenced them and what they go on to do, that is your legacy. I mean, you have, you know, a pretty storied legacy just in all the trainings that you have accomplished and people that you get in there. You know, I'm going to tell a little story on Todd. He has a superpower. I don't know if y'all know this.
Oh.
So Todd can be in a class and be like totally dogging out a company, and they're in the room. But then he'll like turn to us like, oh, no, but I'm not talking about you guys because we were on that fire that one time and you did that one thing, whatever. So he's going to dog them out, but then bring them back up again at the same time.
And
it is
everybody's
amazing.
like, how did he do that?
Yeah, it is awesome. It is really, really awesome.
But sometimes, you know, do we, as bosses and instructors too, do we sugarcoat stuff sometimes, and do we sometimes go too extreme on the other side of the fence? And I think there's a fine line where, you know, when we sugarcoat stuff, we're not being honest. Sometimes you got to be honest with that guy, and sometimes something like that can flip a switch. Just, you know, somebody telling them the truth and getting to look at things. You know, the us and them debate. I love that debate because anybody who's always preaching it's firefighter safety first, I just want to slap that guy in the face. But I can't do that, so I show them the facts. And, you know, one of the best things when you're teaching or you're leading somebody, can't dispute the facts, can't dispute numbers. You know, you ask the majority of officers and chief officers around the country, how many guys die in the line of duty every year? The average answer I've received, 100, killing 100. 100 guys are getting killed every year. Then you show them the numbers. And you explain to them how these numbers are really about. You can do that with, why do we stretch hose this way? Well, let me show you why.
Right.
And amazing how little things. It doesn't have to be this big dramatic thing to flip a guy or to get a high, you know, low performer up a little bit. And hopefully, you know, again, end result, who knows? You may never know if you did anything for that guy. But maybe in the American Fire Service, after you send them to your house, and we've worked and we've begged and we've tried and we've documented, maybe we need to be a little less nice. You know, the old be nice. Well, I want to be nice for a while, but after a year of being nice, then it's time to stop being nice and maybe get you being gone and move on to something else in your life because this ain't for you.
Yeah, I'm a little more on the more direct side on most things, but funny story is a guy had failed a test, and I said, well, do you need me to go talk to him? And he's like, yeah, but don't talk to him like you talk to normal people. I'm like, I know how to turn it off.
I know how to turn it off. I have an off button.
We haven't found Hatchers yet. He has an off button somewhere, but it's hidden.
I don't have to do it all.
It's in his hair. It's somewhere in his hair. That's why he can't find it.
And he won't let nobody touch it, so we're all screwed.
Jealous. But you have a good point. I mean, it's a lot like being a farmer. Not all the seeds you plant are going to bear fruit, but you still plant them. You know, and that's as an instructor, that's what you're doing. You're planting those seeds, hoping that it's going to take root in somebody, and it's going to spur them on to that next level for them. Igniting that fire within them to be that much better. I used to use you as an example all the time, talking to people. I'm like, who's going to be the next Todd? Todd's going to retire. I do it all the time. I bring it up to people, and like whoever they're looking up to and kind of using as, that's the guy that's doing this, or this guy's in charge of this. Who's going to be the next one? Are you? What are you doing to prepare yourself for it?
Yeah.
Well, I think all of us, when you talk to guys out the country, for as many successes, you have probably 5 times more failures. There's things that I've said and things I've done, and I've went, oh gosh, I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have done that. And you learn from those things as well.
You typically learn more from your failures than you do your successes. Just most people don't want to admit that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I love doing is get guys to do, a personal, kind of like their own personal evaluation on themselves. And guys can struggle with that. But if you keep getting them to do it, if you sat down right now and started listing out your strengths and weaknesses, and if you got a hell of a lot more strengths than you do weaknesses, you may need to reevaluate your list again. Because I guarantee all of us have probably more weaknesses that we need to be working towards and working on and getting better. And, it's kind of like the listening skills, things like that. Just something simple sometimes. Finding that off switch every now and then, no matter where it's buried at in your hair. Finding it, turn it off, and going to that next level. And, I struggle with that. That's one of the things, I'm over-opinionated at times.
But I think it needs that. I mean, I think that's part of what is so engaging about, going to your classes is it's not that cookie cutter, straight from the book. It's opinionated. It's direct. It's in your face, kind of teaching and instructing. And I think that a lot of instructors, wish that they could have what, you bring to the table a lot of times.
I think every instructor has that ability. If they're, that's why I get so much out of not just from a learning aspect, but I've changed the way I do things based on watching guys like Mike Champo and Ray McCormack and Shannon Stone. And, I watch those guys and go, man, I got to be better than that. I got to be better than what, I'm doing right now. And I've got notes from this past week. I'm like, oh, I got to change that. And it's based on what I'm watching those guys do and what they're teaching, and their teaching styles are, you can always learn, but those are weaknesses that, I've identified in the way I do things. I got to fix that. So I'm working on trying to write stuff now, and I've got a friend who's helping me because, can't really write the way you speak. So every time I start writing, I go, "Oh, that makes sense to me." But then somebody reads it and asks me if I'm stupid, and then, oh yeah, I guess I am, because look how this is written.
Well, you can't have every third word being a cuss word, so you got to be a little more professional in that.
See, that's one of the things I'm bad at. I'm working on that.
I know. You hadn't said one this whole time. I'm impressed.
I'm trying to behave, so I'm trying to be better at my trainings. I've pretty much cut out the big ones now. I've gotten better at that. I still use. Can I use one?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So I say shit a lot. Right. Are you shitting me? And I replace, so I'm replacing some of my bigger words and using, easier, gentler, explicit language.
So staying on the,
be better at that.
So staying on the topic of the training and the stuff that it's engaging you, you're recently involved in teaching responders about responding with people with special needs. Could you tell us about how you got into that and how it's going?
Yeah, that's, sometimes you just kind of fall into stuff, and I kind of just fell into this. My wife works for the National Down Syndrome Congress, and so I really didn't know anything, and it's just been 6 years now being around it, and I had no clue. I didn't even know what Down syndrome was. for the most part. And it's one of those words we used to use around all the time that I just will not use now. And, starts with an R.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I assumed, and I had all these preconceived ideas about people. And the more I started being around at like conventions or events where people with Down syndrome are around, like, we have no idea about, who these people really are and their special talents and their gifts and their abilities. And so I went to a class, and the guy was basically trying to sell big books to us, to firefighters. Those books, remember we used to have the 3-ring binders in all the fire trucks?
Mm-hmm.
And after about 3 months, half the pages were missing, and there'd be tobacco stains and coffee stains all over them. Well, that's what he was trying to sell. I thought, well, that's stupid. That's not going to work. The guy didn't have any firefighter background. So I took some classes. I went to a program through Ohio State University, and then, being around people and talking to people, I was like, wow, we really don't know what we're doing with people with special needs. And then my son is on the autism spectrum. So I had some actual practical experience, high functioning on the spectrum. But again, I had some encounters over the course of my career that became negative, and it became negative due to not because of the person with special needs, but our lack of understanding. And I got to meet a lady where her son was being restrained by police officers and ended up having his trachea broken and died. And it was solely based on lack of understanding and miscommunication. So the more I got into it, I started writing this program, and I realized the first time I sat down and started writing the program that it was becoming clinical. So I started going out, and we have a self-advocate group. I had to start asking them, what do you need from me? What do you need from firefighters? What do you need from police? And I was blown away by their responses and how open and honest. One of them is a teenager, lives right here in the Metro Atlanta area, and she is just so well spoken about what she expects from us. And it was, it was great, very open and honest. And sat down, and I sat there with her and her mother, and they explained everything that they needed, and turned out to be what a lot of people needed. And a very good friend of mine has a 6-year-old son. He's 6 years old now. He has Down syndrome. He has been diagnosed with autism as well, and he's nonverbal. And talking to him, and he's a firefighter, and talking to him and the challenges he's faced. So the whole program really wasn't written by me at the end. When I look back at it now, it was really written by people with special needs. And, we keep it short, direct. It's not this big, long processing of, technical information, because our interactions with people are never under the best circumstances. They're under high stress situations, and they're very short. But that short, intense moment that we're with them is so critical, and that's why I started teaching that class.
So
it's been great.
Who are you teaching it to?
Both firefighters and police officers. I've done a lot of departments in the metro area. I've done some departments, obviously, throughout the country now, and it's the reception's been phenomenal. I'm always amazed of how many of our firefighters throughout this country have been, have direct relation, either a loved one or their sister's nephew, or they go to a church with this guy, and their interactions that they didn't even realize were going on around them at times. And one of the guys I work with in the training division, he goes to a church, and young lady only remembers him by, that's the bald guy. That's the bald guy. And she's autistic, but it kind of was interesting when he was sitting through the class about those little things. The guys come up to me after the class, say, "Wow, I have this happen. I didn't know this is why." So yeah, that it's
right.
It's one of those things that it's well outside our norm, because we don't have these encounters very often. But damn, when we have them, we better know what we're doing when we start having these communications. And some of the challenges we would face, even on a primary search, are going to be different at times as well. So yeah, that's what the program's really about, and it's super excited. I'm going to be doing in July, New Orleans Fire Department. So I'm super excited about that, and so we're going. doing it at a conference coming up in this summer as well, up in Missouri. So it's very interesting how it's kind of developed, and what's kind of been cool for me as an instructor is I get to learn something new all the time. When I go to convention, it's the National Down Syndrome Convention. When I have interactions with firefighters that have loved ones that have Down syndrome or autistic, and what they've learned, and they share that with me, and I immediately just put in the program.
Right.
The department right here by my house. His 13-year-old son is autistic, and he likes to wander at night, and he has a very unique bed for his son. And he sent me the pictures of his bed, so I added the pictures of his son's bed in my program. Because from a primary search, we would miss it. I guarantee we would miss it.
Wow.
Not thinking about it in those lines.
Right.
So yeah, it's always something new.
If any of our listeners were interested in the program, how would they get more information? Or
yeah, it's real simple. Obviously, I'm a social media guy, so I'm on the book faces and all those things. But the easiest way to contact me is email, as far as I can send you information. And my email address is real simple. It's Todd Edwards, the number 6 at Yahoo.
Okay.
And then I'm on my Facebook. I have my personal page, which is Todd Edwards. Then I run a training page called The Drill Yard. And so I post stuff on there, so I can always be messaged that way as well.
And what's the program called?
Breaking Barriers.
Breaking Barriers. All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're, that program's expanding, and we just did, we've done some pretty big departments in the metro area, and I've done some of the smaller organizations, and the feedback from everybody that's attended has been really, really positive, and we're working on websites now where we'll just be constantly, after guys have gone through the program, they'll be able to get updates of new things we learn and new challenges you may face based on what other guys have encountered.
All right, we're going to shift gears here a little bit more. Again,
sure.
For the listeners, like I said, you've been in the fire service for 30 years, and you're always at busy houses. Could you give them like one war story, like your favorite war story that you tell at dinner parties to scare all the ladies? Or maybe the men. I don't know who you're trying to scare, really.
Yeah, I guess I always look at because every firefighter has those handful of fires they never ever forget. The Cotton Mill fire with Matt Mosley, the helicopter rescue. I can remember from dispatch until we were back in the firehouse. Truly, the scare is the only time I've ever actually felt like this was it. This was going to be the end of my entire life. I was a very young lieutenant. I had been a lieutenant about a year and a half. But at the time of that incident, it was my first day at that company when we had that fire. And it was just again, that domino, just everything was stacking against us, and we didn't even know it was stacking against us till I was running down the interior stairs with as the last guy off the floor. Then you hearing the floors collapse behind us. And that's that one. It's always the one I always go to because it's the one that always sticks out in my head. And I'll never forget that fire, no matter what. There's just, I may not remember my name in a few years, but I will remember that damn fire. So yeah, I've never been that war story guy. If guys ask me, I'll go into detail about fires. But my favorite fires were the, 2-story, the apartments where you make great stops. And, all of us have had, hundreds of not hundreds, but we've all had bunches of those type of fires and all those. And then there's those fires that just don't leave you. As a battalion chief, I can count the number of fires that I remember, not because of anything negative, but the one that was the most negative, I almost killed an entire company based on what I didn't do. So I always look at those fires as well. So my war story is more about what I learned and what I could have did better and what I could have done better, more than anything else. As far as, all the other fires, I have great memories of so many great fires that, where you're on the nozzle. Of course, being on the nozzle is the best thing ever. There's nothing better. I don't give a crap what the truck guys say.
I disagree.
Yeah, Hatch is shaking his
nothing
head.
better than being on the knob, pushing down that hallway, trying to make that last push to get to those last 2 rooms. Nothing better. There's nothing better.
Okay, host jockey. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. Definitely lost perspective now. So we have a list of questions here that we like to ask, kind of in memory of one of our good friends of the podcast, Frank Martinez, who we lost to cancer. So I'm going to kind of run down these pretty quick. What's your favorite word or phrase on the fire ground?
Favorite?
Yeah.
We got water on the fire.
Got water on the fire. What's your least favorite word or phrase on the fire ground?
Be advised.
I hear that one a little bit.
Yeah. I don't really need to ask this one, but I'm going ahead and doing it. Engine or truck?
No, I guess engine.
Yeah.
It's engine all damn day.
I know it is. What motivates you?
Firefighters. Firefighters motivate me. Young guys, senior guys, other officers, those guys motivate. I mean, I can't overemphasize how much, talking to those guys keeps me motivated.
Awesome. What's your favorite book? You do read, right? I'm just kidding.
I can read. I usually have to have somebody read to me. By far, and I recommend this book. I actually have it even in one of my classes on team building, is Extreme Ownership. Hands down, best book any leader can read.
We're familiar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What profession would you most want to do if you weren't a firefighter?
Wow. It would still be public safety. I'd probably be a cop.
Oh, I couldn't imagine that.
I know. I can't. I do and I don't. I would know at least. I would know not to park in front of the house at least.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
You're hired.
Yeah, right. Could you go teach that in a class?
Yeah.
If you were being introduced as a keynote speaker at FDIC, what song would they introduce you with?
Ooh, I'm a metal guy, so it'd be something with Metallica bass. It'd probably be like Enter the Sandman or, For Whom the Bells Toll, something like that. It'd have to be a Metallica song, though.
All right.
That'd be heavy. Wouldn't be anything. Wouldn't be that sissy rock like Gurney or anything.
At your retirement, how did you want to be remembered?
As somebody who actually gave a shit about the fire department and about the fire service.
Yeah, I definitely think you accomplished that.
That's still my goal today. How do you do something if you don't care about it?
I think they care about the paycheck sometimes more than they care about what they're doing. But
I
like your perspective better. I get frustrated by those individuals.
I would do. I'd go cross street right now for free and fight fire. I mean, it's pay was just to me the bonus of doing it for a full time job. That was just bonus money to me. That was just the bonus of being all, man, you're gonna pay me to do this? Are you kidding me? This is incredible.
I mean,
that's how I've always looked at it.
The active fires after your retirement did go down. I'm not saying it's related. I'm just saying that there is some documentation.
Correlation.
I'm just kidding.
It's not causation, it's correlation.
Yeah. If you could go back and give your rookie self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Get education. I know there's a debate about that, but it's one of the, when guys say, what do you regret? I regret not getting more education as a younger firefighter, getting, whether it was at conferences or, actually higher education.
You're talking about like formal education, not necessarily, right?
Yeah, both.
Really?
I think there should be a balance there. And it's one thing, again, when we talk about weaknesses, that's a weakness of mine when it comes to something that should be simple, of writing an article. Is very difficult for me because I don't have that formal education. So sometimes it's a struggle when I'm doing things like that, just because of that.
So, Todd, you'd want the education to better communicate?
I'd want the education to one for understanding. At times, there's some general understanding, some skill levels there. I think I could be taught to write better, obviously, but. I moved into a position at one time that I was woefully underqualified to be in because I didn't have the formal education. I didn't understand. I tried to run a section that had like 10 sections underneath it. I tried to run it like I was running a fire suit. And a lot of missteps because I was handed documents and flow charts and graphs. And I was like, what the hell is this? And I didn't know. I just didn't have that formal education that I could, fall back on. But then I've worked with guys with formal education that couldn't put out their ass stoves on fire. So There's got to be a balance there. Got to be a balance.
Yeah, and it happened to be that your driving was your downfall.
Yeah, but I don't teach driving, so.
I know. You said earlier you weren't a good driver, so I let it go. But
I admitted that right out of the gate.
you did. I was proud of you. It was awesome. Hey, man,
I can handle my own car, but that's about it.
Yeah. It's a very small car, too, I noticed. Hey, man, it's been an absolute pleasure, man. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yep.
Oh, no, I know me and you have spoken probably for a year about trying to do this, and between both our crazy schedules, it's been a little hard. I regret not being there in the building with you guys, so I'm still watching snow like crazy in North Georgia. So you guys be extremely careful on your drive home this afternoon, too.
Yeah, no problem.
I appreciate the time. I enjoyed it. I always enjoyed this. Anytime anybody wants to sit around and talk about fire stuff, I'm always in.
Yeah, again, any of our listeners, if you have the opportunity to plug in and go to one of Todd's presentations, no matter what it is, I'm telling you, you're absolutely going to have a blast. It will be one of the most entertaining classes that you'll ever attend. So, again, reach out to him on Drill Yard on Facebook or Todd Edwards at Yahoo. Todd Edwards 6.
Todd Edwards 6 at Yahoo, yes, sir.
Yahoo.com, then let him know and what his upcoming events are going to be and where they're going to be in the areas that you guys live in. He just said that he's going to be in New Orleans. So if we have
that's in the summer, I'll be heading to Portland, which I'm nervous. It's been a long time, so I've been nervous about doing a presentation, but I'm going to a firemanship conference in Portland, Oregon at the end of the month, and I'm literally don't think I've had my laptop off, putting the final touches on my presentation. So I'm excited. I'm nervous about it because it's such a big deal to be invited to that conference, and they only do invites. So there's no papers. There's no, hey, I'd like to come. They literally have to call and invite you to present at this conference.
That's awesome.
So I'm way excited about doing that. And I'm out there with a bunch of guys I teach with all the time. But, being a presenter for 1,000 guys is always a challenge. So,
I wish I could be there to heckle you.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That would actually help.
Yeah. This is more normal.
Don't feel like I'll be at home if somebody's yelling or complaining about something.
If anybody wants to reach out to us, we're at info@combustiblepodcast.com. And you can reach us on Twitter at Hatch CTP, at Bill CTP, at A Shane CTP, and at Troach CTP. Appreciate y'all listening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.